I've seen Paul show up to the ECW arena, like 2 hours before the show with a napkin, with everything written out in the napkin. And you go to WWE, everything's on the computer. It's nicely printed out. There's two production meetings. There's a nice printout on the wall of everything with the breakdown of times. Just a little napkin.
Whether you followed his career in ECW or WWE, or even our new viewers, if you caught him in his AEW cameo, the Blue Meanie is a living legend. Welcome to Wrestle Binge by Sportskeeda, Mr. Blue Meanie. As prolific a character as he has been in the pro wrestling world, he is also the master of shoot interviews. Nobody gives you an insight into the inner workings of the business like this gentleman you see on your screen. It's so crazy for me to be talking to you. I said this before I hit the record button. I was watching you 25 years ago from India growing up, and you were a great big part of my childhood. Did you realize at that time that you had such a global impact?
It's insane to think about. But that's the power of professional wrestling when you think about it. I got into this business just like everybody. I grew up loving what I did. I was a fan growing up. I still am a fan today as an adult. I just have the benefit of watching it with a different mindset now. Sometimes I watch it with my pro wrestling eyes, and sometimes I take my pro wrestling brain, put it out, and put my fan brain back in and watch it as a fan as well. So there's things I like. There's things I wish could be better. But back to the question, did I think the stuff I did in wrestling would be still remembered? It's flattering. It's really an honor, just because you never know when you're doing it. It's just you and the audience, and there just happens to be TV cameras there, right, in the room. It's being recorded, but just the fact that with ECW, people take those ECW shows, they pass it on down to their kids like it's a family heirloom. There's like, here, son, here's my ECW. You take it on to the grandkids, and then they pass it down. I have kids who come up to me at conventions. So I loved you in Goldust. I loved you in the Hardys. And I'm just like, man, you weren't alive when this happened. How did this happen? But it's very flattering. It's very humbling. Growing up with the childhood I had, I grew up with severe asthma, and I would always tell people I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and they're like, "That's cute, yeah, okay." And then when I was driving off to train with Al Snow in 1994, they're like, "Oh, I guess he's serious."
That's insane. I had a chat with Billy Gunn sometime before this, and we were talking about the era that you were present in. And he said every day we felt like rock stars going to work. Was it the same for you?
It's insane. It was a different level because there's levels to it. I had there's levels because like I went from ECW. In ECW, I had a little bit of notoriety. People would see me. Yeah, I live in South Philly too, which is one of the biggest wrestling cities in the world. And people be like, "Hey, Blue Meanie." But then you get on WWE TV, and then you got people following you around in the supermarket, and I would go to the airport, and there would be people there just waiting for you. Like, pre 9/11, when people could actually go through security and without a ticket and all that stuff, people would meet you at the gate and stuff like that. But, I had my level, but then like I would see Steve Austin, and like that guy had no peace. He had no privacy. People always, pulling at him from different directions. But I mean, I can get it. I can understand, the pressure that he went through. And I was nowhere on his level. but I had, my success and stuff like that. And it afforded me to have a good life and take care of my family. I was raised by my grandparents and my mom. And, everybody says, pro wrestlers go, oh, well, I paid my dues. Well, families pay dues as well, and they help support my wrestling journey. So when I got to go to the WWE and make some serious money, I was able to tell my mom and grandmom to put all the bills in my name, and I'm going to take care of you from now on. So, getting back to your question of be living life like a rock star. It was living life like a rock star. ECW was a little bit more punk rock. We're a little bit rebellious. We might have been more like the Sex Pistols, all those stories you watch the movies like Almost Famous, and guys are riding motorcycles up and down the hallway, or just crazy parties. WWE was a little crazy, but we had to be a little bit more subdued because we're in the public eye than ECW was. But it was definitely, and I have a lot of friends who are musicians and in the rock and roll world and rock stars, and we have a common bond. It's just the bond of performing for a live audience, traveling nonstop, dealing with promoters, and all the other stuff that comes with it. That's why we have such a, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins owns the NWA, but he gets the wrestling business perfectly because he's written stories to entertain people through song, but now he's doing it in the wrestling ring. But he also knows what it's like to tour and do live events and stuff like that. That's why I think the NWA, him owning the NWA, is doing so well. So, but yeah, there's always a big connection between rock and roll and professional wrestling. And stand-up comedians. Pro wrestlers and stand-up comedians get along perfectly because we've all dealt with the same stuff behind the scenes to make what happens in front of the camera.
It's amazing. No, and speaking of the longevity of ECW, what you mentioned, did you imagine that your former boss would still be a character in the hottest angle on television right now with the Bloodline?
Am I surprised? Am I surprised? No. Paul Heyman was a child prodigy, growing up. He's been in the business since he was a teenager, 14, 15. He's talked his way into shooting ringside at WWE events as a teenager. That's ingenuity right there. And then to be able to turn his photography job into a managing job. Bam Bam Bigelow was the one who dared him to become a manager because he knew he had a gift for gab. And Paul was doing locally. There was wrestling in the Philadelphia, Jersey, New York area, independents. I think it was NWC. Paul was doing play-by-play for, and Bam Bam Bigelow was wrestling in Memphis and dared him and said, "Hey, I dare you to come down to Memphis and be a manager." And from there, he became a manager, and then he became a booker with Eddie Gilbert down in Continental, and that's where he dipped his toes into the pool of booking. And then from there, he became one of the best managers in WCW with the Dangerous Alliance. Just the evolution of where he started to where he is now. I'm not surprised. He has a lot of people who have been affected by him, either behind the scenes or in front of the camera. He gave me an opportunity. I'm very fortunate that there's plenty of times he could have fired me. I made a lot of mistakes as a young kid. I was only 23 when I started in ECW. I was only in the business a year and a half when I got to ECW. I made a lot of mistakes, but he had been at one time he had been a young performer, and one time he made mistakes. So he would take me aside and be like, next time do this and that, so. But the fact that he's one of the, he's one of the mouthpieces for Roman. I mean, how do you go from Brock Lesnar to Roman Reigns?
Right.
it's amazing, but it's not surprising to me because I've seen Paul show up to the ECW arena, a couple like 2 hours before the show with a napkin, with everything written out in the napkin. And you go to WWE, everything's on the computer. It's nicely printed out. There's 2 production meetings. There's a nice printout on the wall of everything with the breakdown of times. Just a little napkin. He gives it to John Finnegan, the referee, and John Finnegan has amazing handwriting, so he would write it out professionally and tape it to a wall. But am I surprised that he's still in the business in 2022? Absolutely not, because he is a booking genius, just a bad bookkeeper when it comes to. And I think he would admit that too. He had lofty dreams and wanted to do a lot, but didn't realize how much it would cost to do that. But by the time ECW was making money, if you made, I'm trying to think, I can't believe the 90s were 20 years ago. It seemed like yesterday. If he made money, if he made money in 97,
okay, so that's still 25 years.
If he made money in 97, he was still paying for the bills of 1996. So, yeah, and then you get the TV deal, and you think that's going to save you, and it wound up sinking the company. But he's a polarizing individual. Some people love him, some people hate him. I love him because without him, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to have a life. If it wasn't for ECW, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know if I would be able to support my family. I probably would have had to, before the, wrestling, I was working in the casinos to save up money. I would probably have to go back to working in casinos, which is a great job, but wasn't my dream. Pro wrestling was my dream.
Absolutely. And you did such a great job of that.